The problem with Republicans and Fox News and neocons and conservatives, listen to me good, and even the John Birch Society, listen to me good, is there's Catholics in there that hate this kind of preaching. I'm telling you, even the most, what you think are libertarian supporting politicians are Catholic. Massey, I love him. He's not a Baptist. Listen to me good. There's other people, they're good congressmen on conservative issues. But listen to me good. 137 Catholics in Congress, 60 Baptists, and only 35 of the Baptists are Republicans. What nobody's talking about is the makeup of the Supreme Court, the religious makeup. Now listen, I don't think we ought to allow any Muslims into our country, because if you believe the Sharia law and if you believe what Muhammad taught, it's incompatible with the U.S. Constitution. If that be true, and it is true, then the same thing ought to be true about Catholicism. When you're a Catholic and you say, like a Democrat is a coward, traitor, and spineless traitor. You know why? Because a Democrat believes the platform of the Democratic Party. You're for killing babies and having the taxpayers pay for it. You're for LGBT queer pervert sodomites and having the taxpayers promote that. You're against the death penalty. You're for open borders and all immigration of all kinds of demonic people who are influenced by devils and devilish religions. How can you be a Democrat supporting that? Well, if you're a Democrat, I want to see the papers that you say you believe in the Democratic Party. If you're a Catholic, why don't you read your own writings, what the Pope says that you're supposed to believe in to be a good Catholic? I'll tell you why, because people pick and choose what they really want to believe. Like, if I went to a church and my church says I don't believe in the Second Amendment, I would no longer go there. But you have conservatives going to a Catholic church, good people, as the world looks at it, and conservative. But how in the world can a Catholic sit in a church where the Pope doesn't condemn the sodomites, the homosexual perverts, and he condemns this kind of preaching? How can you sit in a church that would be willing, and he's against guns. He's going on record, he said we shouldn't have guns. He hates the First Amendment. He hates the Second Amendment. History proves it. His own words prove it. How come they go to church there? Because they're pressured to go to church. They grew up. Thank God I got saved out of that mess, man. I was 21 years old when God pulled me out of that mess, amen? And a lot of us here, how many people in this room got saved out of a Catholic or Orthodox church? Would you raise your hand? All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Look at our hands all over. Hands all over. I don't want to tell you how many people are here because we might get in trouble with the health department, amen? King Cuomo might be upset that we have 300 people in church this morning, amen? Yeah. Troy Police might be upset that we're street preaching on the streets, because we're exercising not just the First Amendment, but exercising the right and the authority that God Almighty gave us. Because the Pope is the one that wants to shut us up. I don't say this very often, but when I got arrested for preaching 30 years ago downtown, in the closing argument, the Catholic assistant prosecutor, whatever he was, stood up in closing arguments, told the judge on the trial, judge alone trial, he said, Your Honor, and I forget the judge's name, started with a D, a good Catholic man too, by the way. I can't remember the judge's name. What? No. Anyway, he said to the judge, he says, he can't get up on a soapbox and start preaching against Mary. And I'm sitting myself, I didn't say anything. I said, is this America where you can't get on a soapbox and preach against Mary? Why not? Because a Catholic doesn't want you to do that. A Catholic wants you to shut up. There was a time he says, you know what? Why don't you just go to your own church and have church and preach it there? You don't have to do it on the streets. Now they don't even want you to come to the church house and do it. And God's people are still sleeping because they're being controlled, manipulated, and brainwashed by the Pope, the Antichrist, the Pope. Not an Antichrist, the Antichrist. So when you say what's wrong with Fox News and the Bilderbergs and the Illuminati and international bankers, every single one of them are, why don't you go online and see how many people are Catholic on the Supreme Court and Catholic in Congress and Catholic in the news media and Catholic in Hollywood and Catholic in all kinds of the music industry and Catholic who are sports heroes and Catholic who are actresses and actors. And those are the ones that the world promotes, even if they're conservative. But you get somebody who's a hellfire and damnation preacher like Ian Paisley, Carl McIntyre, or Jack Hyles, or J. Frank Norris, or somebody who called the Pope the Antichrist. You know, Ian Paisley, the Presbyterian, his dad was a Baptist, by the way, a Baptist minister. He got up in the council in the UN Parliament when the Pope came to speak at the UN Parliament, I think 1988, I don't remember. He stood up in front of the whole Parliament and he said, "You're the Antichrist, you're the Antichrist." He stood up with a poster and he said, "The Pope is the Antichrist." They had to carry him out. He had more courage and more spine than most believers do today, most Baptist ministers do today. The Pope is the most evil person on earth. The Roman Church is the most dangerous organization on earth. The Pope hates you. The Pope hates the King James Bible. And the Pope hates this kind of church and this kind of preaching. That's why they hate the Bill of Rights. They hate the First and Second Amendments. They want you defenseless.